Maher goes on an absolute meltdown after this Hollywood legend goes onto his show and declares that the 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump. You guys have got to see the tirade that this man goes on.
Libs have had over popular culture is finally broken this week. Stephen A. Smith, a progressive anchor on ESPN, arguably the most powerful anchor on all of ESPN, a guy who's planning on running for president in 2028, said he totally understands why Democrats would steal the 2020 election and how it could be done. This is remarkable. And then he goes on to blame Democrats and their psychotic hatred of President Trump for all of it. Amazing. But it's not just Stephen A. Smith who is piercing the veil of popular culture. David Mamet, maybe you've heard of him. He's one of the most famous playwrights in the history of America. He's obviously a total legend. His IMDb is just an absolute masterclass of Hannibal. Look at this. Lake Boat Ronin, Wag the Dog, a ton of movies that he wrote, a ton of scripts that are just legendary. Hoffa, just a spectacular. The Untouchables, one of my favorites right here. That's an excellent movie. Excellent movie. Anyway, David is somebody who predicted President Trump would win the 2024 election. He's obviously a Hollywood celebrity, somebody who lives inside of the Hollywood and playwright circles. Trump was the best president since Abraham Lincoln, he says. He has been endorsed by Donald Trump. Donald Trump saying great playwright and filmmaker David Mamet. He just wrote an incredible new book. Donald Trump's been a fan of his work. Apparently, Donald Trump called him after one of his Fox News hits. Here's Mark Levin doing an interview with David Mamet. So it's just a little bit of a backgrounder here because David Mamet was just on Bill Maher's show. And is Bill Maher's like one-on-one sort of like talk show, right? Called Club Random. And they had an unbelievable exchange where David Mamet's just like, dude, the 2020 election was stolen. I guarantee it. It's incredible. Okay, here's how it started. It started with David talking about how President Trump called him after one of his hits on Bill Maher's show. Here we go.
Each book you get more right-wing, I have to say. You get like the last one, I remember you were on my show and there was like one line in it that was, and I said to you on the air, like, are you implying that Trump, that election was stolen by Biden? And no, I didn't. You were kind of like hedging it. And now you're like, well,
you know what happened to me the next morning. You don't know what happened to me the next morning. I was on your show and you said, "Are you implying that the election was stolen?" And I was kind of iffy on it. Right. Next morning, 8 o'clock, the phone rings. The woman on the phone says, "Mr. Mamet, will you hold for the president?" I said, "Wait a second. Biden is calling. It's Trump." It's during the Biden administration. And he says, "David, it's Donald Trump." I say, Mr. President, thank you for calling. To what do I owe the honor? He said, "I saw you on Bill Maher yesterday. You were great." He said, "But you wussed out on the question of the stolen election." And then he talked to me for like 20 minutes about how the election was stolen.
But it wasn't.
Well, I think it was.
Did you happen to hear what Bill Maher initially said to him? You are getting more and more radical, more Republican each time that you come on the show. No, I think he's staying in exactly the same spot. It's just that the progressives and the Democrats of today, they get more and more radical each passing month. If you go back 10 years, everything that Donald Trump stands for is pretty much common sense. But if you went back 10 years and tried to preach what the current Democrats are preaching today, 10 years ago, you would be laughed off the stage and they might even put you into a freaking psychiatric hospital. I don't want to hear anybody saying that we're getting more radical when it could not be further from the truth.
2020 election, which still, of course, triggers Bill Maher. And little Bill Maher threw a fit, but David Mamet said, "Oh, no, they definitely stole the 2020 election. I believe it."
When last we spoke several years ago, you were stuck on this issue. You're still stuck on it. How come?
Because it's not been resolved.
So wait, what is it that hasn't been resolved?
The asymmetry of American elections. The fact that if one party, the Republican Party, wins the election, the other party goes, okay, you win some, you lose some, and they go home. So Hillary Clinton went home, Kamala Harris went home.
Yeah.
You can't imagine Trump ever going home.
Excuse me. Now what you're doing is injecting metaphysics into what might be a matter of So is the question is not what he did. The question is not even what he might do. What you've just said is one can't imagine what he would do. But on the other hand,
No, I don't have to imagine what he did in 2020, which was never concede the election. I'm not even
dude, he didn't have to concede the election. He lost. If somebody is beaten in a prize fight and the other guy gets the belt, the person who's beaten does not have to concede. It's not necessary. He's lost.
Well, it is necessary. The analogy falls down because that if a prize fighter loses, it doesn't inspire people to riot.
How did he inspire people to riot?
By not conceding the election.
Oh, come on. Oh, come on.
What?
Come on. So wait a second. He didn't say the words "I concede," and so that meant people rioted?
Yes. What do you think January 6th was
What
about?
do you think January 6th was?
It was about people who did not hear their leaders say, as every other leader in this country has said after an election, okay, I lost. We welcome the new guy. We had disagreements, but now we're all Americans. When Obama took over, George Bush stood next to him and he said, we want you to succeed because when you succeed, Trump didn't do any of that.
Okay. So what?
Well, so what? It inspires half the country to not accept the basic democratic principle that we have elections, and when you lose, you go away, and then you become the loyal opposition. They don't see themselves as the loyal.
You like me have built a career out of nothing except talent and a little bit of luck and a lot of hard work, but you're full of shit. What I don't understand when you say that he did not say the words "I concede" caused half the country, which you just said, to riot.
No, I didn't say half the country rioted. A lot of people rioted, and it was less than half the country because he got less than half the votes and still won. That's okay. That's our system. But a good deal of the country, approaching half.
It's such bogus right there. I personally do not believe that Donald Trump lost the election in 2020. Trump knows he did not lose the election in 2020. But what did he do in January of 2021? Did he fight the power? Did he declare martial law? Did he say we're getting to the bottom of these voting irregularities, even if the Republic of the United States of America falls? No, he decided, you know what? I think I won. I'm going to fight this through the courts. I'm going to fight this legally. But technically, according to the Electoral College, I lost the election. So I'm going to step down. And I will wish Joe Biden nothing but the best in the future. That's exactly what he did. In fact, he even wrote him a heartfelt letter wishing him the best in the upcoming years. And I truly believe that if Joe Biden did a great job, or if he just had a hands-off approach and let Trump's policies in place, that Trump would not be running again. Trump would not be in power today, even if they did a semi-decent job. But the fact of the matter is, they were incompetent and they were destroying this country at such a rapid pace that Trump decided, you know what, I need to step in because they're destroying everything that the Make America Great Again movement worked for.
Bill Maher tries to get down into the details, and so does David Mamet. Just leave it to the playwright to know what he's talking about here. Go.
They've adjudicated this. They've looked at this. Republicans have looked at this. It was tested in court like 60 times. It was thrown out every time. Trump's own commission, appointed by his own commissioners to look at the election, the Cybersecurity Commission, it's called, or agency. There's two of them. One of them is within the Department of Homeland Security. They all said the same thing. It was the most fair, honest election we've ever had.
No, I'm not talking about the votes. I'm not talking about counting the votes. That the Hunter Biden laptop was suppressed, the COVID information was suppressed. Zuckerberg said himself that the White House pressured him not to bring forward the information on the laptop. Rasmussen said, had that come out, there would have been a 17-point spread.
Oh, please. That's so ridiculous. Those things are true. And they did suppress the Hunter Biden. The press did do that. I've said this many times myself, and COVID. Nobody was more out there about fuck you on we weren't allowed to hear about what we wanted to hear about COVID than I was. But would it have swung the election? Every election, some things are suppressed. It's not a very fair game, politics.
And Bill Maher still proves that he's a Russiagator, which is incredibly sad, right? I thought Bill Maher was kind of coming around. He had dinner at the White House with Trump, but here we go.
He certainly invited another country to do things, and they took advantage of it, of course.
Oh.
Would it have made a difference? I don't know.
How did they take advantage of it?
Well, Trump's campaign manager was sharing polling data with a GRU agent.
Maybe.
Well, okay, that's something that, I mean, even Nixon didn't do that.
Wait, this is the first that I've heard. A, and B, if it's true, and I'm not saying that it is, how did that influence the election?
Well, we know that Russia would put things on the internet that weren't true just to get people fighting, that kind of stuff.
Like what?
They would say, like, the Pope, they would put up some meme about, the Pope is backing Trump. It wasn't true, but people believed it, and then they started to fight over it.
This is going insanely viral and is just like another massive white pill in culture when you have the most famous scriptwriter, screenwriter, playwright in all in living history going on and explaining thoughtfully, thoroughly, wisely, educated from an elite consensus perspective. I mean, he's even wearing the hat that President Trump had the election stolen from him.
You know what? I'm fully convinced that if you showed Bill Maher concrete, direct evidence that Donald Trump won in 2020, he would still turn a blind eye to it. Because if you look at the statistics and the analytics behind the 2016 election, 2020, 2024, it is abundantly clear to anybody that Donald Trump was robbed in 2020. I mean, do you actually think that senile Joe Biden can't string a sentence together, got more votes than 2008 Barack Obama, the very first African American to run for president, and Biden got millions more votes than him? And then suddenly in 2024, when Kamala was running, the 7 million more votes that Joe Biden had somehow disappeared? Like, give me a freaking break. We all know that in 2020, there was a lot of chaos, a lot of turmoil. We had drop boxes. We had people voting who weren't citizens. We had mailmen throwing out votes that were attributed to Donald Trump. And don't even get me started on the Dominion voting machines. You put all of this together, and it's clear who was the true victor in that election. But you know what? I'm kind of happy that Trump didn't lose in 2020, because in those 4 years under Joe Biden, a lot of Americans woke up to realize how corrupt that a lot of the Democrats truly are. And they said, you know what? Donald Trump was right. We thought he was being hyperbolic in all these things he was saying. We saw these things come to fruition. We had 7, 8, 9% inflation. Our paychecks simply did not correlate and did not keep up with the inflation. And that's not even to mention foreign policy, the invasion of our southern border, the mass influx of drugs, Iran-Israel war, Ukraine-Russia war, China just taking full advantage of the United States of America, stealing our intellectual property, nobody standing up for the American worker. In these past 4 years, Trump realized who has his back and who was just a rhino and was willing to throw him under the bus whenever it suited them politically. Trump knows who he can rely on, and that's what I love. That's why I'm so happy he lost that election, because we're able to accomplish so much more. Now that we know the Mike Pences, Lindsey Grahams, Mitch McConnells, we know they're not on our side anymore, and we know who we should affiliate ourselves with to make America as prosperous, as safe, and secure as possible. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this down below. If you could change history, would you want Donald Trump to win the 2020 election, or are you happy the way that things worked out? Let me know. I'd love to know your thoughts. And if you enjoyed, make sure to smash that like, comment, subscribe, and wish you guys nothing but the best. Till next time.